I'm excited.
Go! Phone lines are open at 753-KVNU or 800-369-KVNU.
Kind of like eating vegetables.
It's the Garden Guide, now on KVNU 610 AM and 102 FM.
And we welcome you to the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning. Will Feel Right, and joining us in the KVNU studios is Mark Anderson from Anderson Seed and Garden. We have a special guest joining us on the line that we'll get to in just a minute. But Mark, you know, it's just interesting how Mother Nature over the last month, as we've started the show up for this year, we've had a little of everything.
A little of everything is right, yeah. But it's definitely a more average, normal spring than, say, what we had last year. So that's great. And it is conference weekend, so when the saints meet, the heavens weep. So it's like you know it's gonna rain or it's gonna snow, and it's like always on the tulips at Temple Square and stuff. So that's all right. But it is a great indicator for some things that we need to do. So whether you are LDS and you like participate in the church or whatever, if you live here in Utah, you know when conference weekend is. And it doesn't matter if you're a member or not. You just kind of know when conference weekend is. And there's some really important things that we try and do around conference weekend. One of those is like get the roses ready. Mm-hmm. So it's a great time to get roses pruned and fertilized and ready to go. It's a little bit early and cold to be planting, but that's something we can talk about on the show when we're not invested in talking about grass seed with our special guest. But some things around that holiday, around that not that holiday, but that event. Doing roses, great time to start planting some other early crops. Usually right after the first weekend in April, we can start doing carrots and beets and chard and parsnips and even potatoes if the soil's drying out. And great time to do some work on the lawn, and also dormant spray for trees if they haven't bloomed yet. And we haven't seen any blossoms on the apricots yet, so it's coming though.
I've seen a lot of buds.
I really think by next weekend, if we get a lot of 60s next week like we're supposed to, we could have blossoms on the apricots. So this means it's like time to get your dormant spray on before it's too late. So we've got a couple things we got to really focus on before things change.
And we want to kind of take some time and talk about grass on this show, and we'll get to our special guest coming up in just a minute. But just before we do, a lot of things happening at Anderson Seed and Garden over the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
And we should talk about some sales going on right now, too.
Some great things happening at Anderson's. So, of course, our open house is coming up in a couple weeks. So April 18th through the 20th is our spring open house. And for the open house, we will have lots of great deals and specials going on plants and on some fertilizers. And usually we do watering cans and just a whole bunch of different things. So kind of watch our social media, and we'll be advertising some of the specials that will be going on in the next couple weeks. And then the week after that, we have our planting event, which will be on, I think it's on the 27th. 27th of April. That's our special planting event. We did it last year for the first time since COVID, and it worked great. We had kind of a reservation system set up where you could reserve a time if you needed someone to help you pick out plants, and then we do the planting for free. So you bring in your pots, or you buy some new pots, you buy some flowers to go in there, and we will plant them in your pots for free for you, and that includes the soil as well too. So it's a great event. We have the scheduler is on our website, and we've been sending that out in emails. It'll be on our social media as well too. But you can go onto our website and you can schedule a time. So that way we don't have 100 people all showing up at once at 1 o'clock on Saturday the 27th. But you can actually schedule for a 10:30 appointment. Maybe show up at 10 o'clock, so that gives you some time to pick out the flowers that you want, and then we're potting them up at 10:30 when you are ready to go. Yeah. So the scheduling will tell you, if you're going to schedule for 11 o'clock, make sure that if you need some help, you're going to come in at 10:30, 10:20. We'll have somebody available to assist with that. But if you come in and you know what you want, you might not need that much time to figure it out. But your planting time will be 11 o'clock.
Perfect.
so it works out great. And it's compost tea weekend that weekend too. So we're going to be doing our compost tea party that Friday and Saturday as well. Also.
And I know someone was asking last week as we were wrapping up the show, can you bring in an old container from years past?
Yeah. So absolutely. So if you got a container from last year, whether it's a 2.5 gallon or a 1 gallon container, we can relabel it, put a new label on there. You'll pay for your compost tea for this year, and then you'll be set up for free refills for the rest of the summer as well too. So works out great.
And it's a great deal. You bring in that container anytime for free refills through the entire season.
Yep, exactly. And so what we've been trying to tell people is you can come in once a day and we'll refill. I've got some people that only really have a Saturday weekend to come in. So if you want to come in and get some and then come back later and get another refill, that works out just fine. But we're trying to encourage people, if you're refilling multiple times in the same trip, that doesn't work. It's kind of like going to McDonald's and bringing your 2-gallon bottle, your gallon milk bottle with it, and you go get refills and pour it in there and then go get some more. No, it doesn't work that way.
It's almost like bootlegging back in the day.
Yeah,
that doesn't count.
With the compost tea, really, one application every week to 2 weeks is great. It stays in the soil, it increases your microbial activity, gets things going, jump starts your soil, your plants go crazy. But we're trying to cut down on the hoarding this year. But 1-gallon containers they're $13.99 this year, and 2-gallon containers are $34.99. No, it's $14.99 and $34.99. And God, we've got so many people that are hooked on the compost tea. It's amazing how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got hanging baskets or if you've got flower pots, we've even put them on our raspberries. Great.
Yeah, it does a great job. So
okay.
So a lot of fun things happening at Anderson's, and of course this weekend we are open. Lots of bare root trees, bare root fruits, strawberries are in, raspberries are in, asparagus are here. Great selection of onion plants in stock right now. So it's a great time to stock up so that when the weather is gorgeous next week, you'll be ready to do some planting.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, we want to talk about grass, and this is the perfect weekend to talk about grass because it
really is.
Really can't talk about planting gardens or anything with the weather we're having.
We'll be ready for next week when that weather looks good.
Yes, that's what we're looking forward to. And so give you a chance to introduce our guest for the Garden Guide.
On our show today, we have Doug Washburn with Agrono Tec. Doug, thank you so much for being on the show.
You betcha.
It's great to have you on the show. And, of course, we definitely want to talk about grass. And, to start off with, anything exciting and new we need to know about this year? I know there's been some great developments in grass seed over the years, but anything you want to share with us right off the top of your head?
Well, I guess for those who are into overseeding, they need to continue that program and keep up with that so they can keep their weed population down.
I've had a lot of customers in this week that have been doing some overseeding, especially in shady locations. They're trying to get some new grass coming up in those shady locations. So a lot of homeowners coming in and doing that. So
yeah, it's ideal before the trees leaf out, and you still get some sun down there to get the grass to germinate. So it's ideal to capitalize off that. Any
varieties you would recommend, especially for shadier locations, like if they've got deep shade caused by trees or it does thin out a lot in some of those areas?
Yeah, bluegrass isn't going to take it. Turf-type tall fescues have a better chance, and the fine fescues have the best chance. So mixes that are high in those things, turf-type tall fescue or fine fescue, will have the best chance of surviving. You will have a finer textured if you go with the fine fescue. So there will be a little bit of a differentiation in your texture of your bluegrasses, your ryegrasses, your fine fescues, and tall fescues. So the choice is do I have something under the trees, and can I tolerate a little different texture? That's kind of the question you've got to ask yourself.
In those shady locations, yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm finding out is that most people would rather have something under the trees than nothing, and so, go with a fine fescue or a tall fescue product in those environments, and you've got quite a few in your arsenal there to choose from.
Right. And we do carry a really nice blend of turf-type tall fescues that would do great. And as you've mentioned before in the past, they're really drought tolerant too.
Very drought tolerant, good wear tolerance, good bug resistance, good rooting depth. There's just a whole bunch of positives about the turf-type tall fescues. You do have to mow them up at 1.5 inches or higher, but they won't creep into your shrub bed. You won't have the need for a concrete border or anything to keep them from invading your house.
So they're not as aggressive to spread out like the bluegrass, because I know we have a lot of people that call in and they're like, "Hey, my bluegrass has gone underneath my edging and it's now in my flower beds, and how do I get it out of my flowers?" So the tall fescues are not going to be as aggressive like that.
Not a bit. You can edge them every once in a while if you like that cut edge, and
sure,
but there is no real need to go to the finance of a concrete border. Just use your edger and give it that groomed look if that's what you want. But no, it's not going to invade your shrub bed at all.
Okay, so I know we've talked before in the past, like if you really want your grass to spread, you're going to mow it a little bit shorter, and if you want deeper roots, we're going to let it grow taller, so it encourages more of a deeper root system. Does the turf-type tall fescue work the same way that way, or do you want to just mow it a little bit taller all the time?
Well, no. Density, I mean, if you've got dogs, if you got kids, if you got high activity, if your yard's the neighborhood go-to place, you'll probably want to mow it a little bit shorter so it can have a denser environment, and that's going to increase your wear tolerance. So the tall fescues are the same in that category as the other cool season grasses. But, if you're trying to save on the water, then mow it a little higher. Now, you can really get clever if you want to get fancy and put a apron, if you will, around the perimeter of your lawn and mow it a little bit higher and mow the interior a little bit shorter, and you could have the real wow lawn in the neighborhood. But that means you got to adjust your height of your mower, but that's not too hard with those clicks on the lawnmower,
Right. So last year,
fancy person, I
didn't say last year we talked about Eden, and so we started bringing that grass mix in, and that's got the dwarf tall fescues, and then it has some very aggressive bluegrasses in there, and super drought tolerant. Our recommendation that we usually give our customers around here is 1 inch to 1.5 inches of water per week to really keep your traditional Kentucky bluegrass lawn looking really good. If they were to switch and go to the Eden, what's the water savings? I mean, what could we go with and still keep it looking really good, but conserve a lot of water that way?
Well, what little I know about the Cache Valley soils, where it's sandier, you have sandier soils up against the hills, or what? On the benches,
sandier, rockier. But if you get out more into the valley, it's still pretty heavy clay. So we get a lot of clay in parts of the valley for sure.
Well, obviously the clay areas are going to hold the water better, but it's going to take the water a little slower. So your watering practices in the valley would want to be short durations but frequent.
Okay.
You might have 2 or 3 cycles in an evening, and in order for it to soak in and stuff.
Right.
Up there on the benches where it's sandier, you're going to have to let it run a little bit longer. You don't have the water holding capacity.
Right.
So, but the beauty of the tall fescues is that at maturity, it can have a 5-foot long root system.
Wow.
And your bluegrasses and ryegrasses will be lucky to get 6 to 12 inches. So those of you who are on the benches and have that looser soil, it would behoove you to have something that goes deeper for the water, and you'll get more conservation out of your lawn, and you get more miles out of the water.
Right.
So I would strongly consider that for the bench people. The fescues traditionally will survive on about 30% less water than bluegrass. So
that's a significant savings. I mean, if you're watering 3 times a week, you could cut that down to 2 and save 35% of your water.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. You'll have to educate me about your water, but if it's like a lot of Utah water, it's got high salts, and that might be a concern. You're throwing less salt on your landscape. If you're watering less, you're putting less salts out there.
Yeah. Our water is pretty low salinity, so not too much of a problem. I mean, it's high alkalinity. Yeah, so the alkalinity is high, but not too bad on salinity. So our water sources run over 5 million limestones on the way down. So so lots of alkalinity, but not too much salinity. So that's great. And then if we were to use like a water aid like Hydrotain or Back to Green, that really helps the soil retain and hold the moisture a lot longer. So in conjunction with a water conserving blend of grass like the Eden, or maybe like our Marks mix with the tall fescue and the ryegrass in there, a lot of people could probably get away with watering like once every 5 to 7 days. And
they probably could. Yeah. Again, capitalize when the wind is less, and as soon as the sun goes down, start your watering. That old wives' tale of only watering the first, when the sun comes up. These grasses are so disease resistant and stuff. You can water them when the sun goes down, and like I said, run 2 or 3 cycles.
Just not, yeah, and that's called surge irrigation, and it really does get that water to penetrate deeper into the soil, because you get that nice moisture on the surface, and then you come back and water again right afterwards, and it just like penetrates a lot deeper into the soil. But I mean, that's exciting when we can recommend a grass to some of our customers and say, hey, if you mow properly and we get it the right product, before it gets really, really hot, you could really get away with watering once a week and keep your lawn as green and nice as if you were watering, previously 3 times a week.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the plant needs water, but it doesn't hurt it to dry out just a little bit, because drive those roots down a little bit.
Goes down where the soil's cool and wet, and there's water available for it. So that's great. And we've always carried a lot of drought tolerant grasses, but when we started talking last year about Eden, I was very excited about it, because you mentioned it has some really great recovery qualities to it, where it will fill back in. It'll like self-repair because of the aggressive bluegrass that's in there. And then you've got these great dwarf fescues that really look good but are super drought tolerant.
Yeah, the bluegrass has what's called drought avoidance, and tall fescue has got drought tolerance. So going into a drought, the fescue will do better. The bluegrass will go into a dormant state sooner than the fescue. But when water is restored, it would be the bluegrass that greens up first.
Faster, yeah.
And then the tall fescue. So that's the difference between drought tolerance and drought avoidance. And having the two in the same yard takes care of that dormancy period if it does get severe, which we don't want it to do. But
it does on occasion.
Yeah, but you are, as a homeowner, you're protecting yourself the best you can against either natural or unnatural droughts. Sometimes politically, they just shut off the water, and
right.
So your investment, which is your landscape, would be well protected with those two products in your yard.
Yes, yeah, for sure. And it's just an exciting opportunity for people to be able to still keep turf in their yard, not tear that all out. And I've got people coming in, they're like, oh, we just want to get rid of our front lawn because we're really concerned about how much water we use. And they come in and they want to take that all out and put plants in. And I'm just like going, you're talking 3 cents a square foot to plant a new, very drought tolerant grass that's going to use maybe 30 to 60% less water than what you've used in the past. Where if you're putting drought tolerant plants and landscaping and putting down weed barrier and bark and all that, you're probably $3 to $5 a square foot. Yeah. So you're talking 100 times more more cost.
Well, let's talk about why our forefathers and traditions are to put grass out there, and I think it's first and foremost for weed control.
Yes,
it's very easy to manage weeds in a lawn, and when you do mow a lawn, you are cutting off some of those weeds, those plants, and they can't survive a mowing. So what a lot of people are going to realize is that keeping up with shrub beds is a bit of work, and they get behind the curve.
Yeah.
And then it's a real problem. So, and then the other thing that people need to realize is that 1,000 square feet of grass will generate enough oxygen to support 4 people. So if you put a dome over 1,000 square feet of turf, people could sit under the dome and survive off the oxygen that's generated by the grass.
Interesting.
So we got to be really careful here as we change our ecosystem, trying to save water, but air filtration, air manufacturing, cooling effects of grass and plants, it's going to be vital. Someday our children and grandchildren could be talking about how hot it is,
yeah,
and because they're surrounded with rocks, and then they'll be on a big campaign to put in turf and ground covers and everything to cool down the environment.
To cool things down. Yeah. I found
we got to be a little careful here.
Yeah, I found when we built our house, the amount of dust and mud and dirt that came inside the house was extraordinary until we got turf down, and then all of a sudden it cut down on all the dust and the mud and everything. So plus it traps all the water. Like we're getting rain, right now, and if you're in a spot where you don't have turf, it just runs off. It doesn't penetrate into the ground once it gets hard, and the turf will filter all that and then pull it down into the soil and allow it to be reabsorbed and fill up our aquifers and everything. So it has a lot of great benefits. Turf does.
Well, I'm down here in Hurricane, and the wind that you guys are sending us down is pretty rough. And I want to tell you that there's some dirt areas around my place that, tumbleweed and dust is just blowing. I'm telling you, I want to go over there and throw some seed out on these open lots.
Sounds about right.
Really makes a difference.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, Doug. So we're probably going to take a little break here, Will.
Yeah. Take a break, and when we come back, we can talk more about this what we were talking about: drought avoidance versus drought tolerance grasses, and best ways to be able to incorporate some of those grasses into your lawn.
That's good.
And we've mentioned this too, and we can get into this after the news break. That a lot of us, we think, well, I've had my lawn and it's growing, and so it's fine. I just don't have to worry about it. And yet, it's like anything else around your house. It may be time to upgrade
a little bit,
and make a change.
Right.
And so we'll get back into that more as the Garden Guide continues as we hit the bottom of the hour here on KVNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KVNU News. Just because the Oakland Athletics baseball team will not call Utah a temporary home does not mean that's the end of the discussion of Major League Baseball in the Beehive State. On Thursday, the franchise announced Sacramento as its official host city until construction on the new stadium in Las Vegas is complete. Hayden Combs, a Southern Utah University college professor of sports media with a Ph.D. in athletic management, said the fact Utah made it this far in the discussion is a huge win. Combs said the decision between Salt Lake and Sacramento likely came down to key circumstances like TV contracts, market size, and pre-existing relationships. Still, he feels the future of pro sports in Utah, including baseball, is bright. On the other hand, NHL, will it be coming to Utah anytime soon? Well, the Arizona Coyotes say they are committed to win a land auction that could pave the way for the NHL club to remain in the Phoenix area after years of arena uncertainty. The team hopes to buy the plot of land in North Phoenix and build a privately funded arena and entertainment district. The Arizona State Land Department set the auction for June 27th in a legal notice published Thursday. The starting bid is $68.5 million. The Coyotes are nearing the end of their second season at a 5,000-seat rink on Arizona State's campus while looking for a long-term solution. Ryan Smith, owner of the Utah Jazz, has expressed interest in bringing in an NHL franchise like the Coyotes. Rain showers, snow showers in our forecast this weekend. Much cooler, highs in the low 40s. For the latest news, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
From ABC Sports, I'm Mark Remillard. And then there were two women's Final Four action in Cleveland last night. In the early game, 3-seed North Carolina State held undefeated South Carolina to within a point at halftime. But a 29-6 third-quarter run secured the Gamecocks a berth in the national championship. 78-59 the final. Head coach Dawn Staley post-game.
I'm just proud of our team to be able to play on this big stage and not play our best basketball in the first half and come back out and make some small adjustments and meet the moment to get us to Sunday.
In the nightcap, 3-seed UConn trailed Iowa late.
Now it's Connecticut, down one. A trip to the title game on the line. Mule, the drive, 5 seconds left. Looking for Benders and an offensive foul. An offensive foul on Edwards with 3.9 to go.
On ESPN, the Hawkeyes held on for the 71-69 victory. Iowa and South Carolina battle for the national championship tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. The men's semifinal round tips off tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern as 1-seed Purdue takes on 11-seed NC State. Later, 4-seed Alabama tips off against defending champion UConn. In the NBA, P.J. Washington scored 32 in a 108-106 Mavericks win over Golden State. The Celtics fended off a late Sacramento push to edge the Kings 101-100. In the MLB, the Braves beating the Diamondbacks 6-5 in 10 innings. A pair of 3-run blasts powered the Rangers to a 10-2 shellacking of the Astros. And the Brewers beat the Mariners 6-5 on a walk-off walk. I'm Mark Remillard, ABC Sports.
If you think you're too young to worry about heart disease, think again. I'm Essence Harris, and I was 30 when an angiogram found a 90% blockage in 2 arteries. Now I'm asking all women to take control of their heart health. Exercise, eat a heart-healthy diet, and above all, listen to your body. Learn more at womenheart.org.
The expert with a green thumb. It's the Garden Guide on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Welcome back to the Garden Guide here on KVNU. I'm Will Feelwright, joined by Mark Anderson of Anderson Seed and Garden, and we have Doug Washburn from Agrono Tec, who's been joining us on the line, our special guest for the Garden Guide on this Saturday morning as we've been talking about grasses. And we're going to get back into our conversation about how to be able to improve the watering of your lawn and how you can save a lot of money with different lawn types. But before we do, Mark, let's just talk about some of the things that are going on at Anderson Seed and Garden this weekend and over the next couple of weekends.
You know, when spring begins and the sun comes out, it gets kind of crazy at Anderson's. A lot of people come in and they want to get their garden planted and they want to fertilize their lawn and they get excited about all kinds of things. And so we try and have a lot of fun things happening throughout March and April that get people excited about being outside. So our bare root sale is going right now. We have lots of varieties of bare root fruit trees. I mean, peaches, apricots, nectarines, apples, pears, plums, you name it. We even have some combo apples and some combo pears that have multiple varieties on each tree. We have some pluots and some pluaries, which are combinations between plums and apricots, and plums and cherries that are really unique and fun. They're self-pollinating, which is great. You can just plant one tree and it pollinates itself. So a lot of fun things that way. But raspberries are in, strawberries are in, grapes are here. We've got currants, we've got gooseberries, we've got asparagus, we've got bare root onion plants. I mean, it's time to get out there. And the weather might not be great this weekend, but next week looks amazing. Yeah. And I'm hoping to spend a lot of time outside in my garden next week, plant some raspberries. We're going to get some early crops planted as well too. And we've got all of our seeds in at Anderson Seed and Garden. You know, last year we had a shortage on sweet meat squash. So it doesn't happen very often, but every now and then there's a variety that just crop failure, just doesn't grow very well. Last year we could barely get any sweet meat squash. Just got our sweet meat in. So if you want to get sweet meat squash, I've got pounds available.
Lots.
Which is nice because
2 years supply.
Last year we were like, divvying out. We were, trying to conserve a little bit. It's like everybody could get like 10 seeds was like our maximum. It's like, you can get basically as many as you want this year. Yeah, we got tons of sweet meat squash. So, but bare root sales going on right now. It's the best time to get your bare root plants. And it's also the best pricing of the year on those plants as well, too. And then coming up in a couple of weeks, we've got our spring open house, the 18th through the 20th. A lot of fun things going on for our spring open house. And then the week after that, it'll be our planting event. Make sure you get information on how to sign up for that because it's not just a free-for-all show up. It's going to be sign up for a specific time, and then we'll be able to have the right amount of people to help you pick out what you're looking for and also get them planted. And then compost tea party coming up. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to put root beer in that brand new tea composter that I've got before we start putting the worm castings and everything else in there. Maybe we'll have compost tea and free root beer for the compost tea party. We'll see.
If you had them back to back next to each other, you
could never. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Yeah, it's like you can't tell the difference. It looks exactly the same, but if we brew some homemade root beer or sarsaparilla, that could be kind of fun. Have that pouring out of the compost tea
before
vat.
You transition it over.
So we'll see if I can get my sarsaparilla extract and some dry ice. We might have to play around with that. That would be on the 27th. So 26th and 27th of April. Maybe we'll get that brand new compost tea brewer going with a little root beer in it. So.
All right. Well,
it'll be fun.
We thought it would be a perfect weekend since there's not going to be a lot of planting done in this area with the weather we're having to talk about lawns. And I know a lot of us over the last couple of weeks, we've been getting fertilizers in. A lot of people I've noticed in our neighborhood have been aerating their lawns.
I got my fertilizer on about 10 days ago. So I did my humate. So I put the humate on.
And some fertilizer
and then I put just
together.
a good early spring fertilizer on there. No pre-emergent, just the fertilizer. And, it's ready to mow. Like the grass looks so good. It's not growing really fast, but it's like now I can mow it and get rid of all the junk that's left over from last year and get that little bit of dead grass off the top and get it looking good. Doug, do you like mow a little bit closer when you do your first mowing in the spring? That's kind of what I like to do.
Oh, yeah. You want to get that dead stuff off and get the green stuff showing. And, that's really a good move. And then it's, mow it as short as you feel comfortable and then throw some seed out there, fill in those aerification holes. Remember that when you aerify your lawn, it's like putting holes in cheese. And but anyway, that's a real opportunity for weed seeds to get established because you thin out your lawn a little bit when you aerify.
Which is good for your lawn, but,
Yeah. Aerification is essential. It's very important, but it's also a great opportunity to introduce some newer varieties of grass that are more heat tolerant, cold tolerant, bug resistant, the whole bit, and bring your 30-year-old lawn up to the current age with these new genetics and.
Yes. Bring it into the new millennium, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But, as I've said in the past, mowing interferes with the life cycle of the plant. This next month and a half, 2 months, the plant is pushing really hard to grow seed. But through the mowing process, we cut those seed heads off, and so what we're stuck with is a very old geriatric lawn that's not very resistant to environmental pests and other things. So we've got to step in and overseed the lawn, and a great time to do it's after we aerify.
Which happens a lot in the spring. And we try and encourage our customers to do it in the fall, but there's a lot of people that do it in the spring, and great time. We built our house in like the mid 1990s, and I look at the calendar and I go, oh my gosh, my grass is like 30 years old. Yeah, I'm just going, I can't believe it's 30 years old. And so a couple of years ago, my wife decided that she wanted to kill a section of our turf out because we'd got some pasture grasses had snuck in and some big, thick, clumpy grasses that she just didn't like after 30 years. And so she sprayed it and killed it right in the middle of the summer. And then we reseeded it, put some newer varieties of grass in there that were more disease and more insect resistant and more drought tolerant. And it's the best looking part of my lawn now. Like, it's gorgeous. And I'm ready to kill other sections out and start those all over too.
Do those as well.
Yeah. I know Will wants to get rid of all of his lawn and plant new stuff now.
Well, we've been talking with Doug Washburn from Agrono Tec, and he is, when it comes to the grass guru, you are definitely it, Doug. And yeah, it's funny. Last year, well, it wasn't funny at the time, but I went into the garage to grab some weed killer and grabbed the wrong bottle. You've heard this story, I'm sure, 100 times. Instead of grabbing the weed killer, I grabbed the Kills-All and went out and said, I'll show those weeds and kill those. And not only did I take out the weeds, but I took out everything.
A bunch of the grass, And it does a really good job, doesn't it?
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Did a great. Boy, that Kills-All's great. And so, actually, I was reseeding last week just before the rain started coming in. I thought, hey, this is going to be a perfect time. I put the fertilizer down. Put the seed down, and now I've been watering it a little bit to try to get it to take off again.
So also a few years ago, Doug, this is a good one because we have a customer that had a lawn that was probably 40 or 50 years old, and she wanted to start incorporating some newer grasses into it, and so we had her aerate her lawn in the fall, and so she had it aerated very aggressively, mowed it really, really close, and then seeded our Marks mix on top of that. So it was like the turf type rye, turf type fescue blend, which is super insect and disease resistant. It's got some great drought tolerance as well too. And so we overseeded and she fertilized it, and it started to germinate in the fall. But when winter came, it didn't really you couldn't really tell that a lot had come up. And so then the next spring, when the grass really started to green up and really started to grow, she called me and she's like, Mark, you gotta come out to my lawn. It's like there's something wrong with it. And I was like, okay, I'll come out there. And so I went to her place, and she had polka dots everywhere. Like polka dots all through her lawn.
From the aerating.
From the aeration. And where the new grass had come up, it had all come up in those little holes that you were just like talking about. And it was dark. I mean, like dark green compared to her old grass. And she had polka dots like everywhere. and I reassured her that was quite all right. And, for Easter, that would be awesome, to have polka dot lawn for Easter. And it's like, maybe we should aerate it again and do it another time. And then all of a sudden you'll have all this gorgeous, dark green grass that has, kind of taken over your older grass. And sure enough, by fall, all the polka dots were gone.
It was gone.
But her lawn looks so much better, and she didn't have to water as much, and she never has to put an insecticide on anymore. So it does make a really big difference.
It makes a huge difference. These younger grasses are just prettier. They're darker, greener. You can stripe it. You can make it look like a ball field, or just whatever your heart's desire is. You can really have the primo lawn in the neighborhood without a whole bunch of effort, and it's a real show for the house. I mean, we all know that a good-looking lawn just really sets the house off.
Yeah. Well, right now we're looking at about probably our most expensive grass. Like our most expensive one is about 3 cents a square foot. Which is so inexpensive, because I've got people that come in and they're buying, 2 applications of an insecticide for their whole lawn, and they're spending, like $100 every year, twice a year, to keep the insects out. When they could probably spend $100 once and put new grass in there, aerate it, apply some new grass, maybe aerate again the next year, introduce it again, and then all of a sudden they don't have to use their insecticide anymore. And it's really, really inexpensive to incorporate these new varieties of grass into your turf, and all of a sudden you have all these great new, advantages to your older grass, whether it's insect or disease resistance or drought tolerance, or it greens up earlier, or it's a darker green. It's very inexpensive and easy to do.
Yeah. And Doug, you mentioned the term drought avoidance earlier. That is something that we oftentimes don't think of with grasses, but you see that, especially as we do get into some of the hotter months of summer, when some of us are trying to cut back on water, and how those drought avoidant grasses can really help keep those lawns greener, even when you have to start scaling back on watering, if you have to.
Yes, it's drought avoidance. Like I said, is the ability of the grass to recover when the water conditions are there. The grasses that have water or drought avoidance will green up quicker, so that your dormancy period is much shorter. And so having them mixed in with your drought tolerant grasses just gives you the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of tricks that we can do with grasses. I had talked earlier about meadow look, and
oh yes,
down here in Hurricane, I've got a meadow that I put some wildflowers in, but I never mow it. So there might be areas in your landscape where you don't, you need some erosion control, or you might need some something like that, but you don't have to mow it. You don't necessarily have to always mow grass. You can have a meadow look on your hillsides. We have a product called Slope Saver, which is 100% fine fescue product, and I invented it in the late 80s, but it stays where you put it. It doesn't creep into any adjacent areas. And for those of your customers that are on the benches and they have to put a slope in order to get a building pad or something, it's something to consider. Maybe people have a cabin someplace and they want to have some green grass around their cabin, but they're not up there all the time to manicure it. You know, create this meadow look and put some flower seed in there and never mow it.
Yeah. How tall does that fine fescue max out at?
Oh, about 10 inches.
10 inches.
You know, it'll send out a seed head once a year, and you can decide at that point whether you want to weed eat that off, or you can just leave it and have it drop the seed.
Drop a little bit more seed.
It's kind of pretty to have that golden seed head wisping in the wind and stuff, you know. So
does it produce seed pods in like late May, early June, like the rest of the grasses?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it'll fall over and get a little wavy, and you know, depending on how the wind shifts it and stuff. But it gets about 10 inches tall, and it's a mixture of chewings, hardened sheep's fescues.
Okay.
And they're all clumping grasses, and but it's a consideration. You know, you might just, you know, decide that I want my side yard or someplace just to be a meadow. And again, talking about underneath the trees for shade tolerance is extremely shade tolerant grass.
Right.
So you might put this meadow underneath your trees and not mow it.
Yeah. Would you want to maybe mow it once in the fall just to kind of clean it up each year, or do you just leave it?
I would leave it, and I guess what I'm saying is if the seed heads bother you, then you can cut those off soon after they appear, and then they're done. But I've had it on several of my yards over the years, and it's a great erosion control product. In fact, you might have heard a couple of years ago, well, it might have been a year ago, there was a big hillside that went down in Mountain Green.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
There in Morgan. That was my neighbor's. That was my neighbor's house right next door. Well, I had slope saver, and my hill survived.
Yeah.
But he had the hill slip on him and stuff. But my slope saver just hung right in there. You know.
That's cool. How many pounds per 1,000 square feet on that one?
10 pounds per 1,000.
10 pounds per 1,000. And then we usually will do like not an ounce, a couple ounces of wildflowers per 1,000 square feet. So you could mix those two together, and we have some amazing wildflower mixes. I think I've got 10 different wildflower mixes in stock right now, whether you want to feed your pollinators, or if you want to attract hummingbirds and butterflies, or if you want more drought tolerant, or it's kind of shady. I've got a little bit of mix. You can just mix that right in with it, broadcast it out, and it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be kind of meadowy looking with flowers popping up in there. And and if it is a slope, like you said, you've got some great erosion control and water control as well too. All your water's not going to just like run off and disappear. It's going to absorb it right down in the soil.
Exactly. And no, you look at how Mother Nature, you know, holds a hillside in place. It's a lot of vegetation, a lot of grasses.
Yeah. So
that's what she goes to. Yep.
That's a really great option. And you know, we were talking about the drought avoidance compared to the drought tolerance, and people forget bluegrass. It really is one of the best grasses for drought, because it recovers really fast, and it will go dormant I've seen people like move out of a house because they got a job somewhere else, and while they're trying to sell the house, there's nobody there, and they don't have somebody to manage it and maintain it, and so the grass will go totally dormant. It'll just go brown in the middle of summer, and then somebody buys the house in August and starts watering it. All of a sudden, the turf comes right back. You know, it
comes right back.
Super resilient. So,
yeah. I mean, grasses have a lot of positive things like that. We got to be careful what we throw out with the bathwater. I mean, you know, we're kind of getting too aggressive on what we're throwing away. You know.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of programs that they're paying people to flip their strip, which I think is a great option. But when it comes to the amount of money that they're spending on it, you know, you're $3 to $5 a square foot to re-landscape, and you're maybe getting paid back $1 a square foot on it. Well, if we took that $1 a square foot and put that into drought tolerant grass seed, we could take care of 33 properties instead of one for the same price.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is you could put that park strip into a meadow.
Yeah.
You know, put drought tolerant grasses in there and turn it into a meadow.
Yeah.
You don't have to mow grass. I mean, how often do we go into the hills and go, man, this meadow looks nice. This really looks nice.
Yeah.
Well, take that meadow off the hill and put it in your yard.
Yeah, become very, very drought tolerant, very low maintenance, and considerably less expensive than the alternative. So.
Right.
Not too bad.
So, yeah. So
Right.
there's a lot of different ways to use grasses. It just doesn't always have to be manicured.
Right. How much time we got left in the show?
We've got about 3.5 minutes.
So we got that short. So a couple questions I'm getting right now, Doug, and as short an answer as possible. Vole damage. We're seeing a lot of vole damage over the winter. What's going to be our best process to fix that damage really quickly?
Well, to fix vole damage, you got to scalp the yard and reseed. And again, you're going to be airifying probably, but yeah, you got to get rid of those tunnels, raking it, airifying it, reseeding it.
Yeah. Maybe bring a little bit of topsoil just to kind of maybe groom some of the indentations that they've made.
Yeah. You could do that, water roll it, but the important thing is to get your plant life back but yeah, cutting the lawn down a little shorter and aerification and reseeding it and little top dressing. Doesn't take long.
No. That grass is pretty resilient. It comes back really quickly. But every day I've got people coming in. They're just like, how do I fix this? I've got some damage. And mowing really close kind of gives you the start to that. Bring a little soil in, aerate, fertilize, a little seed on top of it, and away we go.
Yep.
Perfect. Doug, thank you so much for being on the show. It is a pleasure to always have you on.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, and we've got just a couple more minutes, and as we were beginning in the show, we mentioned that this is the time of year not only to think about your grass, but also about roses.
Yes.
In the last 2 minutes, we got to talk about how to take care of them.
So conference weekend is the time to start prepping your roses. This will be a great year for rose survival because our winter has been much milder. And so this weekend is when we recommend you trim your roses down. So if you've got hybrid tea roses or grandifloras or floribundas, we're going to cut those down to about 4 to 6 main canes and 6 to 10 to 12 inches long, and take everything else off and then fertilize right after you prune. And so if you fertilize them with a good rose food with a systemic, it's going to control insects, but it's also going to encourage a lot of new growth. And then through the growing season, as the roses bloom, you want to prune those fairly aggressively to encourage more flowers. And we recommend you fertilize every month throughout the summer. So if we start fertilizing in April, we're going to fertilize once in April, once in May, once in June, once in July, once in August. Keep those roses going like crazy. If you have shrub roses, we can just shear those. So if you've got Simplicity roses or Home Run or knockout roses, they can just be sheared because they're really, really hardy. They don't need as much protection throughout the wintertime, and they kind of free flower all summer, so you can just like shear those a little bit differently. So this is the weekend to get after that. Open house is coming up in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Bare
root sales still going on at Anderson Seed and Garden, so come in and get those trees. Great upcoming week to plant. Weather looks amazing. Let's get those early crops planted in the garden. We can get some nice color put out there with some pansies and some primroses, and then trees and shrubs.
Yeah,
they're coming.
That's
all coming.
And with the temperatures getting back into the 60s after this weekend, it's going to be a great time. So
good time to be outside.
Great to have you here in the studio, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate Doug Washburn from Agrono Tec joining us on the studio line. And we hope you join us again next week for the Garden Guide here on KVNU.
Covering all the news. Stay with 610 AM and 102.1 FM. Breaking news and